What's going on, guys? Meteorologist Jonathan Kegges on a Wednesday evening. It's a little rocking out there on the Atlantic Ocean. If anyone had the opportunity or lives along the Atlantic beaches, you saw a pretty cool sight again as the waves were pretty crazy. The high tide was very high, but we're through the worst of it. And again, as we really talked about since for the last 10 days now, that this was going to be the extent of Erin's impacts, just coastal. Again, we are going to keep those dangerous beach conditions cranked up at least through the weekend. I'm coming at you live on News 6 Plus and, of course, on the News 6 YouTube page. Do me a favor if you are tuning in on YouTube, or, which a lot of people do, dial up News 6 Plus. That's, by the way, a free download to your TV. You get all these tropical loops like that bad boy right there. I'm just going to play the music so you can see what I'm talking about. So you can keep updated a look on the tropics. But also, people use the YouTube thing and also sign in so they can comment. You can also comment on clickorlando.com. There's going to be an article there that has this web stream or this live stream embedded into it. All right, we're taking a live look tonight. Neptune Beach and in Daytona Beach. The coasts are getting rocked tonight with some strong and big waves. High tide, the highest high tide of the bunch came earlier this evening at about 6:30, give or take, along the Atlantic beaches. So we are watching things recede a little bit. And gradually over the next few days, the beach conditions are going to improve a little. At least the surf is going to back off. The one thing, though, is it's still going to be dangerous to get into the water. The rip current risk is going to stay elevated through the weekend. On the tropical front, we're going to take a long-range look. Since the last time I made the thumbnail, you saw there was a little orange thing. That has now gone to red. You may have seen that in the tropics loop. So forming behind Erin, we could have Fernan. That's how it's pronounced. It looks like Fernan, but it's Fernan and Gabrielle. Those are the next two names on the list, and both of them have a decent shot. None of them look like they're going to impact land. And then we'll look at getting in toward the peak of hurricane season, how that looks. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Elizabeth, good to see you. Jody, tomorrow morning looks very nice to get out there. Thursday morning, looking very, very good if you want to head out in that direction towards Epcot. Most of the day is going to be on the dry side until later into the afternoon. We're going to get some of those storms to slide on from west to east tomorrow. So a little bit of a different motion. I will show you that. I'm just loading up the comments as we speak. We will get on to it with the latest on Hurricane Erin. It's expected to strengthen again. It's jumped back up to 110 mile per hour storm. The pressure way down again to 941 millibars. It was in the 950s. So it's again getting stronger as expected as it works its way in between Bermuda. The one thing that I want to show you, though, look how big this thing is. We have some of the high cirrus clouds pushing toward Long Island right now. So if anyone happens to be tuning in, from southern New Jersey and a little bit Long Island, the clouds that are streaming through from south to north are from Hurricane Erin. Again, not coming there, but just look how massive that thing is. Just absolutely wild. And that's something that's going to continue to lift up and out. Again, just chewing up the beaches a little bit. I don't know what just happened. I don't know, something just, if you saw that or not. Firefox wanted to update and just crazy stuff. All right. So thank you guys a ton for being here. The high surf advisory does continue for tomorrow. So we're back into Thursday night. We're still in that 5 to 8 foot category in terms of the breaking waves. Erosion is possible at high tide. Just some minor stuff. We're not talking about anything too crazy. And again, I don't think that we made it past our worst of the worst. And again, it wasn't that terrible. So that's kind of the thing to note. I want to show you the tide map here just to kind of give you a sense of what's going on. Again, we had a high tide earlier this evening, and that was expected to be the highest of the high tides along the Atlantic coast, right around 6:30 tonight. Low tide comes in around 1 a.m., and then we're back on high tide tomorrow morning, so we'll see how that plays out. But tomorrow's high tide in the morning is not expected to be as high as what we saw this evening. So in terms of any kind of coastal flood risk, I think we're past the the biggest potential for that. So some good news there again. It's going to all be about the dangerous beach conditions though over the next couple of days. Still toasty. 95 in Jacksonville, 94 degrees in Orlando, 94 in Tampa tomorrow. Vero Beach, good evening. We're at 94 as well. Miami, popular number. We're back to 94 as well. 92 in Pensacola. So, Zachary, it's funny that you ask this question. He says, and there's no name. I hate whenever it does that. But Zachary asked, when is it rain is expected to return for the East Coast, the West Coast sea breeze being dominant? That's actually happening tomorrow. So I'm going to jump the gun with one of my next graphics and show you exactly what happened. So there's this weak little disturbance hanging on in the deep south. And look at the thunderstorms to try to erupt as a result of that tomorrow. So that's 11 o'clock in the morning. This little like blob of thunderstorms. It's not tropical or anything like that. But it's all in part to get storms to fire along the West Coast, the Gulf Coast, and then kind of push over to the west. There's not a lot of fanfare here. There's still some drier air involved. But we certainly could have some stronger thunderstorms embedded. Anytime you get thunderstorms to develop and you do have some drier air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, that's whenever we can get some damaging wind gusts involved. So on an isolated scale, I'm going to be looking for that. There's a slight chance, Melissa, for a few stray downpours tonight. Nothing significant. But tomorrow is going to be a slightly better chance before. Elizabeth brings up a good question. How is Naples cooler than us heat-wise? Because they are going to be having a better shot for rain earlier. So there are the clouds and rain coming in on the southwest corner of Florida. On the southwest corner of Florida. So they're going to see a little less sunshine. They're going to have a little more rain to keep them cooler. So that's how it can be cooler for them. Tiffany, good question. I will get to that a little bit later as we get into our tropical front. Eric is asking if it's going to get cooler anytime soon over the next couple of weeks. Here's the deal. I am looking at the latest data because I'm telling you there's a chance not to really get cooler, but by next Thursday or Friday, so like a week from today, we could be talking about maybe the humidity being shaved down a little bit. There's a really big cold front coming to the eastern 2/3 of the United States, atypically cold for this time of the year up there. It's very rare that a cold front comes through in early September, let alone August, okay? But some of the data that I'm looking at would suggest that north central Florida going to get in on maybe at least some lower humidity. Maybe. It's so hard to tell if it's going to make it here because it's just typically impossible to do so. I will say, though, we have now made it through the hottest stretch of the year, climatologically speaking. Look at this. This is a water cooler conversation you can have with your friends over the next couple of days. Again, high temperatures today made their way back into the lower 90s. August 20th is our last day of our average high temperature being 92 degrees. Once we get into tomorrow, our average high temperature goes to 91. So, literal baby steps. We've shaved our temperature off 1 degree. However, you have to start somewhere, and then by the first day of fall, September 22nd, our average high temperature dips into the upper 80s. So climatologically speaking, and we all know this, if you lived in Florida for any amount of time, it takes a long time for us to get a little on the cooler side, and it still looks like it's going to be that way. Alrighty, guys, I have to hit my first break coming up. We're going to talk about the tropics. We'll look a little bit long range, and we will get to Tiffany's question right off the bat. Thanks a ton for being here. I'll see you in 3 minutes. Alrighty, guys, welcome back to News 6 Weather Live at 9:30, coming at you live on News 6 Plus and on the News 6 YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here. We just broke down the Florida forecast, so we're going to have a little pattern change tomorrow. It's going to send our rain from west to east. Also, we took a quick look at how Erin was impacting the Florida beaches and the entire eastern seaboard, safely staying out at sea, at least the main meat and potatoes of the storm itself as it rides back up along in between Bermuda and the Atlantic coast. New tonight, we have a red area in the Atlantic Ocean. You see it going orange to red because I have the satellite loop on. So the last 3 hours. So but that update came at 8 o'clock tonight, and you saw that right there turn red. So we're now have a high shot for development, 70% chance for tropical development over the next 7 days. You see right now it's an open wave. So look at how it looks like an N shape. The wind comes in out of the south and east. It goes up and over almost like a roller coaster and then back down. So we have an open tropical wave right now. In order to become a tropical system, it needs to close off and then fire thunderstorms around the center like that. That's, of course, Erin. So you see the difference there, the circle pattern there. That's the area of low pressure, tightly wound up tonight. And obviously firing big thunderstorms around its center because we have a Category 2 hurricane and expected to become another major hurricane as it slides to the north away from land. Here's another area back in this little bubble. It does look like it's trying tonight to get a nice tight circulation. There's a circulation right there at the surface. So the thunderstorms are back off to the west a little bit. So there's an extra shear coming in out of the east. They're not co-located. And that's a problem as well because in order for a tropical system to get all of its strength from the warm waters of the ocean, you need to have it vertically stacked, as we call it. Low level center on top of the mid level or below the mid level center. We don't have that yet, so it's not tropical in nature. It's close. If we do get this named, these guys are going to be competing for the name Fernand and Gabrielle. So we'll see which one gets one, if any get one, because I do think right after this, we're going to shut down the Atlantic for a little bit of time, really as we go into the main meat and potatoes of the 2025 hurricane season. So here's kind of the you are here, where we stand kind of deal. We have what's left in the orange box left to go of hurricane season. So you see there again, the third week of August is where we're at, and all the way to November 30th is what ends it. So there's still a lot of it. By this point, there's still 85% of the season to go. So, I mean, again, we have, unfortunately, a long way to go. We saw that last year because we were really quiet through really till Helene popped up. And then the rest is kind of history there with Milton to follow and some of the other strong storms that hit the other parts of the country. But that's where we have left to go. Now, in terms of Invest 99L, the other one still isn't an invest yet, but 99L was. I'm not sure why they decided to pull the trigger on that one. And once it becomes an invest, as we often talk about, that's whenever the Hurricane Center runs the hurricane models. We get the spaghetti models out, and you see a lot of these guys, these models don't really go out that far, and that's because they don't have this thing living that long. So you see it there, 40% shot to develop over the next 7 days. A short-lived tropical depression, maybe a short-lived tropical storm is possible out of the deal, but then the conditions become unfavorable. And for the most part, they are going to stay unfavorable, I think, out in this range for the next couple of weeks. So I think it could be a quiet start to peak season, but then we could have that flurry of activity that we're going to have to watch out for the back half of September and then through October. That seems to be how we're doing things these days. Climate Prediction Center looks a little bit longer out than the 7-day outlook from the National Hurricane Center. They do highlight an area for possible tropical development as we get into the last few days of August and into the first couple of days of September. So right there off the coast of Africa by the Cabo Verde Islands. This comes out every Tuesday, by the way. I touched on this. We ran out of time because a lot of this was talking about Erin. So I wanted to show this again. And then as we get into the first week of September, as we close in on the peak of hurricane season, which is the 10th, and really it's just the statistical climatological peak. Peak season really runs from about now, the 20th of August, through the first 2 weeks of October. So it's really that 8-week period from the third week of August through October. So they've highlighted 2 spots there down the line for that first week of September, and everything there. Limitless Lightning says, saw we are under a La Nina watch. Do you think with Erin shutting down the MDR for a couple of weeks and possible return of the Central American gyre, do you think we're going to get a huge uptick? I think the uptick comes later in September. The gyre really isn't going to come back. That forms a little bit later, so we're still not in gyre season just yet. But once we get the MJO pass in September, I think that kickstarts it again. And that's going to be like the third week of September. It's leaving our basin now. That's why we're going to be on the stable side on the we're going to have more wind shear in the basin. So it's going to be hard for these storms to develop. We still have the stability issues. But once the MJO comes back in late September, that's probably going to be the catalyst. And it's going to kick some things off. And unfortunately, we have the instability naturally because we're getting into fall. We're cooling the upper atmosphere. So we're going to have that kind of coming into play. So there's all of that stuff coming into fruition as well. Had the question, I don't know if it was 2 people or just Tiffany about the Cat 6. I don't think we're ever going to make it to a Cat 6. It's very hard to get to Cat 5, even with what we've seen a lot of over the last few years. It's very, very hard to sustain Category 5 status, because once that hurricane gets strong, it's going to have a very teeny tiny eye at first. And then, as we saw with Erin, it's a great example. It goes through an eye wall replacement cycle, and it'll tear down its eye. It'll get a bigger eye and expand its wind field. So it's really hard to keep these hurricanes strong for very long in most cases. Of course, we have like the Ivans and the Irmas and the Marias and things like that were like Cat 5s forever. You sometimes get that given pristine environmental conditions and things like that. But no, I don't think we're ever going to need one. I don't think there will ever be one, because again, it's just so hard to maintain Category 5 status, and especially at land. We've only had 4 of them. 4 of them hit land. If you can tell me during this break, if you can name the 4 Cat 5 hurricanes, don't cheat, post that in the comments. I have to hit the second break, but while we're on break here, if you can post in the comments the 4 Category 5 storms to hit the United States, bonus points when we come back from this 3-minute break. Alrighty, guys, we are back. I asked before the break to post in the comments since we were talking about Category 5 hurricanes. And Tiffany, that was not a dumb question at all. That was definitely not a dumb question. So don't think that by any means. I believe Richard has it correct. Andrew, Camille, 35. And then there's one more. There's one more. So there's 4 total. Limitless Lightning got 4 minus 1. So Andrew, 92. Camille, 60 something. 69. 1935 hurricane in the Florida Keys. And then Hurricane Michael in 2018. Ian was upgraded to a Category 5, but it did not make landfall as a Category 5 hurricane. So that was still a high-end Category 4. So again, that kind of reiterates the thing that, I mean, once you get that strong, it's going to do the same amount of damage. So those are the 4 Category 5 hurricanes, only 4. And of course, Florida has 3 of those 4 hurricane landfalls. So just Category 5 hurricane landfalls in history. And again, history goes back to the late 1800s, the most intense being the Labor Day hurricane of 1935. Just wild stuff for sure. Alrighty, guys. Hey, want to thank you a ton for tuning in again. Appreciate you joining on a nightly basis. Love that we get to hang out, talk about the weather together. Again, tomorrow the rainfall pattern changes a little bit more out of the west to east. So East Coast is going to have the higher opportunity for some storms later on into the afternoon. And then once we get into the weekend, the rain chances go up even further. And as we were talking about, there could be like a teeny tiny morsel of, I don't want to call it cooler air, less humid air coming the middle to latter stages of next week. I am looking at the data with this maybe mini less humid stretch, like more intense than anything, because I am so ready for summer to be over. I don't know about you guys, but I am ready for the fall. I am ready to get into the comfortable season. It's been brutal out there. Post in the comments. You ready for fall? Well, some cooler air, or you like the heat. Thanks a ton, guys. We're coming up, New 6 at 10. We're going to talk about the latest on the beaches with Erin, and we're going to hang out some more. We'll see you New 6 at 10. I'm back tomorrow right here in the Digital Weather Center, New 6 at 9:30 for another awesome show. Thank you guys a ton for being here. You guys are awesome. We'll catch you tomorrow night.